friends who've supported you. And let's proceed with the convocation.
Mr. Chancellor, graduates of the class of 2014, colleagues, members, and friends of the university, it is my great pleasure to introduce Louise Penny, celebrated author of 10 mystery novels, all set in Quebec. Louise Penny received a BA from Ryerson in radio and television and had a successful 18-year career in journalism with the CBC. But the muse beckoned, she bid farewell to radio, and Louise Penny turned her hand to writing. We are grateful that she did. Her best-selling works appeal to mystery fans for their elaborate plots, lively characters, and of course, their brown-eyed detective, Armand Gamache. I first read Louise Penny's novels while living and completing my doctoral work in Toronto. A proud Bishop's alumna longing for return, I devoured her familiar images of the Eastern Townships. Little did I know at the time that I would eventually come back for the long haul as a professor here. I like to think that her books had a talismanic effect on the fulfillment of that return. I have long been a murder mystery fan, but what has resonated most in Louise Penny's work is her love affair with place. And that place is our place. Her village of Three Pines, with its eponymous trees and its vision of bustling small-town life, replete with nosy neighbors, is strikingly familiar to many of us. Whether it is her creation of the memoir Bellechasse in a heat wave, its lush garden scent wafting in the breeze from Lac Massawippi, or the idyllic enclave of her monastery Saint-Gilbert entre les Loups, a more murderous but comparably idyllic version of Saint-Benoît-du-Lac, her vivid landscapes conjure up a brighter, sharper, more intensified version of our own. These landscapes provide the setting for so much more than cozy whodunits. Louise Penny's mysteries explore themes of addiction, greed, anger, fear, and confusion, of love lost in one, of death and desire. But she also presents us with the beauty of goodness, of bravery, and of the light that makes up part of every human being, no matter how flawed. She reminds us that perfection is not an attainable or an enviable state. Her books show us that, in the word of that timeless bard, Leonard Cohen, inspirer of the title of her 9th book, there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Mr. Chancellor, I present to you for the degree of Doctor of Civil Law, honoris causa, Louise Penny, author, optimist, neighbor.
Michael's going to put the hood on you. Good. Face the photographer. There we go. Domine spectatissime auctoritate mihi commissa admitto te ad gradum doctoris in juris civili in nostra universitate honoris causa.
Don't you wish you knew what he'd said? I read all the Harry Potter books and I have my suspicions. Thank you, Mr. Chancellor. Thank you, Jen. Principal and Vice Chancellor Goldblum, graduating students and members of the Bishop's community, families and friends, congratulations on this amazing day in your life. I think you know what a great honor this is for me. I think it is perhaps slightly magnified because my father graduated from Bishop's after the war. And I know how much he loved his time here, as I imagine you have as well. And I know how proud he and my mother would be of me at this moment. I think he would also be slightly surprised. I think shock may not be too strong a word. Because, you know, the fact is nobody really expected much of me. There's a... There's a wonderful line from the wife of one of our prime ministers, Lester Pearson. Mrs. Pearson was quite a character, and among the many bon mots she had, she said that behind every successful man there stands a surprised woman. Well, I've got to tell you, behind this very surprised woman, there is a whole line of even more surprised people. As I said, no one when I was your age could have ever predicted that I would one day be here. No one would have predicted that I would have written one book, never mind 10 of them. When I go on book tour, the question that is often asked is, how did you do it? Although the intonation is a little bit more like, how did you do it? And I tell them my favorite cartoon from The Far Side, which has two scientists, and they're at a blackboard, and there's all this formula on one side, and then there's a gap, and then there's the solution. And in the gap, the one scientist has written, and then a miracle occurs. And the other scientist said, I think you have to be a little more specific. When I talk on tour, I tell that story, but I don't tell them what the miracle was for me. And that's the way I feel. I work, end up on the bestseller list. But it happened because there was a miracle occurred. But I want to tell you what that miracle was today. And I don't, as I say, don't tell many people because it is fairly personal, and I know that we're very private here. But in order to do so, I have to go back to my childhood, which I know sounds like it's going to be long and dull, but thankfully for you all, it's riveting. I was a very frightened child. All I ever wanted to do was be in my room reading. All I ever wanted to do was write a book. I was afraid of everything. I was afraid of other students. I was afraid of adults. I was afraid of heights. I was afraid of holes. I was afraid of the morning dew. I was afraid of everything. In fact, it got so bad that as punishment, when I was a child, my mother would send me outside to play. Now, I knew that this was no way to live a life. The frightened child became the frightened teen, became the frightened adult, and I knew that this was no way to accomplish anything, never mind my dreams. So I put all my problem-solving skills to work, and I came up with the solution. The solution was, I would drink. You might be wondering, none of you are writing this down. You might want to write this down. I would drink a lot. And I did. I drank a lot. And I was so good at it that by the time I was in my mid-20s, I was an alcoholic. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, she is smart. In the meantime, I had become a journalist, but I wasn't writing. I wasn't doing any of the things that I had actually dreamt of doing. And I got to the stage about 10 years later where I was standing in the middle of my bedroom, about to go to my great job at the CBC, in the home that I owned, about to go out to the car that I had bought. On the outside, everything looked fantastic, but inside, I was empty. I was hollow. There was nothing there. I wanted to die. I wanted to kill myself. And had there been a gun in the house, I would have. I had come to the edge. I had come to the gap. And then a miracle occurred. And the miracle was so banal, so simple, I'm almost embarrassed to tell you what it was. I asked for help. And I realized it was really the first time in my life I had asked for help. In the past, I had always asked for help, but what I actually wanted was for people to do it for me. Please help me. They would do it for me. Please carry me is what I was asking. I wasn't actually asking for help, but this time I actually asked for help, and the help was there. That was the miracle. But you know, no gap. If there hadn't been a gap, there hadn't been a miracle. Within a year of getting sober, of stopping drinking, I had met the love of my life. Within 5 years, I was married and had written the first book. And 20 years later, I stand before you now, humbled, filled with gratitude and filled with joy. I thought the best was behind me, and it hadn't even started. Shortly after I got sober, I went to a talk, and a man got up, and he talked about the four phrases, the four statements that lead to wisdom. And he said them fairly quickly, but for some reason, it tattooed itself onto my DNA. And they are, I was wrong, I don't know, I'm sorry. I need help. I ended up marrying that man. Poor guy, I didn't let him out. I kept him, there must be a fifth. What's the fifth? Come on, come on. His name is Michael Whitehead. He's the one who really should be standing up here. He was the chief of hematology at the Montreal Children's Hospital. The doctor you never ever want to see, because he had to tell young parents news that no parent should ever have to hear, and he held the hands of dying children into the night. It was a horrific job, but he would come home the happiest man I know. Not because being with dying children gave him pleasure, obviously it didn't, I hope. The gift he got from those children was that he understood how wonderful life is, and what a betrayal it would be of them if we who get to brush gray from our eyes don't live it with gratitude, with joy, with awareness of how lucky we are. In one of my books, I talk about I have the story of a Cree elder who's talking to his grandchild, and he admits that within himself there are two wolves that are battling, a gray wolf and a white wolf, and they're tearing each other apart inside, and they're tearing him apart. And he said the gray wolf wants him to be vicious and aggressive and mean, and the white wolf wants him to be kind and gentle. And the grandson is really, really upset, and he says, well, which wolf is going to win? And the old man says, the one that I feed. Michael has the courage to feed the white wolf, and he has taught me to try to do that every day. What I want to say to you is that wonderful things will happen to you. It's so exciting to look at your young, beautiful, handsome faces and know the world is ahead of you. But if, perchance, you happen to come to a gap, I want you to know that it is not the end. For me, if there was no gap, there would be no miracle, no Michael, no Michael, no books, no Dr. Penny. I want to thank you for allowing me to be part of your special day, and I want to thank you very much for being part of mine.